This whole Christmas event, as we might call it, is so deeply ingrained in our minds, in our hearts, in our religion, and in our culture, and just kind of intertwined like that, that it would be almost impossible to figure out what the world would be like if Jesus Christ hadn't come into it. Wouldn't it? Just everything. It's kind of all messed up in there someplace. And if that's true, that it's almost impossible to see what the world would be like, I think we can still say some things that could be seen as true. Before Christ, for example, we had, in the Old Testament, a kind of a picture of a distant God, someone who was out there and only kind of frequently would have a little manifestation here on earth, but only to a certain few people. So God was kind of distant and apart, looking over the whole earth and all his creation. That was before Christ. With Christ, we see that Jesus has come to put a face to God. Colossians, it says, Jesus is the image of the invisible God. We want to know who God is. Take a look at Jesus, a good look at him, and we'll figure out who God is. We'll get a much better idea. Not a total one, of course, but a much better idea who God is, because he came to take on our flesh and our blood, and he's not distant anymore. He is one who has walked with us, and we believe still walks with us. For Christ, distant. After Christ, he's very new, very near to us. The second thing is that before Christ, we had more of a picture of a punishing God. You step out of line and you're going to get it. Now there's, some major exceptions to that in the Old Testament. And, where God says there will always be a remnant. But in the meantime, thousands of people were, died, and they blamed it on God. They made the mistake and blamed it on God. So, but anyway, it was a picture of a punishing God. With Christ, we have a totally different image. Because with Christ, we now know that God is merciful. And that in Jesus Christ, he came to save us from our own sinfulness, to set us free. That we didn't have to be weighed down by all those mistakes and be ridden by guilt. That's with Christ. Oh, one more. Before Christ, death was going into the black oblivion, the darkness, eternal darkness. And in that eternal darkness, we didn't know what happened. Some people had started to believe in some kind of resurrection. You lost somebody and you think they're gone, we're lost. But with Christ, with his passion, death, and then resurrection, we have finally seen and heard from someone, died and came back, said, I am risen from the dead, and so shall you be. So now when people die, people we love, we believe that their life here, yes, that's ended, but their life is also beyond here. And we believe and pray that we will meet again after we all leave here. What a difference that makes in our loving and in our grieving. What a difference. And so God in Jesus Christ has come to embrace us, to embrace the flesh and blood that we have. And he came to suffer with us, as well as to rejoice with us, but to be part of who we are. So God understands. God gets it. And in Jesus Christ, we can be sure of that. And isn't it true that at Christmas, we take a look at that great gift every time we look at a manger scene? That the Almighty God of all creation has sent his Son, who is now a baby, vulnerable, helpless, part of us, not scary, but he has come to walk with us. And it talks about a total self-giving of who he is. And that is it not the foundation of what we do at Christmas? The foundation of what we do because he has come into our lives, our tattered lives, with our tattered hurts, with our miserable mistakes, with our broken relationships. He comes into that life and he braces that to himself. And that kind of gift of self is the kind of gift that kind of enlivens that in us too. Especially during this whole preparation of Christmas time, Advent, we run around, we try to think what we're going to buy other people. We try to think what do they need or what do they want? How can I do something for someone else? So is it not true that, well, most of us anyway, try to do something for the sake of somebody else? Would that be true? Let's hope so. And we also spend more time with each other. People drive or fly, come from far distances. I'll be home for Christmas. We want to get together. And it focuses us on what's important in life. We get reminded of that. Oh yeah, I got to remember. I want to be with my loved one. And so we make more of an effort at this time of year to do that, to do what is most important. And thirdly, we also start thinking about those who are needy, who don't have what we have. And the generosity that comes out is just amazing. We can talk about the gifts that we're given here through our giving tree, or talk about the Salvation Army, or any other number of stories you might have seen on the news about the generosity of people at this time. It brings it out of us. God has given himself to us. Maybe we don't think those words, but the image right there, it tells us something different. And we just kind of know. We're here and we need to give. We need to give. And it brings great joy to do so. And that's the thing about Christmas. It brings a deeper sense of joy to us. If we let it. I recently read just a brief story about a woman whose husband died and was buried shortly before Christmas. And she couldn't just get into putting up all the decorations. But she did put up a manger scene, the nativity scene. Someone says, I'm kind of surprised you did that in your grief. She said, I did it not because my husband died, but because Jesus is born. How can you put up a manger scene when your life is falling apart? A better question is, how can we not do that? Because isn't that Jesus the one who has come to bring the deepest kind of hope into our lives? He says, I'm going to be here, I'm going to be with you in it all. Set up that manger scene to remind us of that. God with us, even in my falling apart life. So that's the spirit of Christmas. It's the spirit of giving. It's the spirit of hope. And it comes through Jesus Christ. And somebody might say, well, then why don't we live that spirit all year long? Well, my answer is this. Jesus came into the world so that we might be able to live that spirit all year long. This is a reminder, but it enables us, it strengthens us to have that same kind of vision every day of the year and to live it by his power and by his grace. To be loving, kind, forgiving, helpful to others. To reach out. Because as accustomed as we are to the light of Christ, this world needs more of it. We heard in that first reading, the people who have walked in darkness have seen a great light. That light is more needed in this world. And you and I, as followers of that light, are called to live that light, to bring that light into a darkened world.